welcome back to Porcelain Peak, a strange and scary podcast featuring Chop Talk trivia and deep dive main discussions into the odd and unusual. And this week, we are featuring Final Cut.
Oh, shit, dog.
Oh, shit. I'm one of your hosts, Tone, and I'm joined by
John
and
Anthony.
Woohoo! And this week, for our news, we're going to share a bunch, but one of them is about a new alien.
Ooh.
And then we're going to play trivia. I think you're on a very big streak.
3.
Yeah, it's very disappointing for the rest of us. For our main discussion, we are kicking off animation. Woo! Talking about the old Akira. And then for our final cut, we are diving into the brand new Evil Dead Rise. So, if that interests you, then stay tuned and we'll get started with that Chop Talk.
Stick around.
Why don't you take an axe and chop it open?
Before we dive into the plethora of news, how you fellas doing?
I'm doing pretty good. So I'm on day 1 of a 5-day staycation. I got
nice.
a little haircut action. The first haircut I've actually gotten from someone who wasn't Mrs. Jigsaw in like 10 years, probably.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah. Looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think now is the time for us to we should all shave our heads. What do you guys think?
Hard pass.
You've done it before.
I have done it before I had a mental breakdown. Thanks for bringing it up.
Well, I just figured, you're probably close to that same
Hey.
same
He's
stage
not
again.
that innocent. Britney Spears. Shaved head, mental breakdown.
Yeah, I got it. I'm there.
Okay.
Anyway, how are
it's
ya?
Pretty bitch. I am doing quite well. So I have something prepared because.
I don't like it.
So speaking of mental breakdowns, now I was feeling a bit stressed. I had a very anxiety filled weekend, and literally nothing was going on. It was just me sitting at home watching old classic movies, but I had just intense anxiety. So Sunday night, I was trying to think what can I do to just get some good belly laughs in. And so I just went on YouTube and I Googled this, and this 5-second clip had me laughing hysterically for a half hour straight.
Move the mic away from your mouth.
So I'm sure you guys have heard this clip before. It's literally just an echoey fart.
That's what that is.
You can hear the...
See, I'm doing it again. And part of it too was just the comments too of people talking about loved ones who had passed, whose farts sounded just like that. And it's just it was.
Did they pass because of the fart?
Yeah, they passed gas and then from this mortal coil. No, it was. Yeah, I just got. It was the hardest I've laughed in a really long time, and it really set the tone for my week. So,
Good. That's good. Maybe you should do that all the time.
So if throughout this episode at any time you hear an echoey fart, it's because I think I'm just going to introduce it as a new part of the show.
Great.
When I feel like John says something that doesn't make sense, just...
No one will be able to hear the show. You would just be constantly just clicking the button.
That's true. I can't overuse it. I've got to let it keep its power.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So we want to dive into a little bit of that newsy?
Yeah, so speaking of things that are overdone, the Alien franchise.
Yeah.
We got some new news. We've talked previously about how Fede Alvarez was the newest man with the plan when it came to a new Alien movie, and that is actually for realsies happening because it's Alien Day today. And he posted a picture that's pretty tight with the film slate for his Alien movie and with a face hugger on it, showing that filming has begun on his iteration. And as somebody who liked Don't Breathe quite a bit, love his Evil Dead from 2013, and just recently rewatched it, I'm very excited to see what he does with Alien. I haven't checked out his Girl in the Spider's Web. I've heard some people say that it's all right. I think your first problem is David Fincher did a Girl with a movie,
and I don't think that was Super Bowl received
and
either,
also
was it?
I enjoyed that.
I did too.
But I think
I don't
it's
think anybody
also
watched it, though.
doesn't help that the main character also gets recast. It's kind of rough.
Yeah, but
yeah.
if he's going to try to bring it back more in line with the horror stuff, because Alien has just become a progressively more science fiction action series as it's gone on, and if he wants to try to pull it back into the horror zone, I'd be very happy to see
The
that.
Horror Zone, that could have been a name for the show.
Yeah.
Do we know if it's anything to do? Like, is it a remake of the original? Is it a sequel to Ridley Scott's?
I think it's a spin-off, if I'm
or
not
is it
mistaken.
something like? What do we know? Any details? And is the show still happening?
So the show is still happening. Noah Hawley's show for FX, it's still happening, but doesn't seem to have any connection to this movie. It just seems like they're racing to just get Alien stuff out, regardless of whether any of it connects with the other stuff. I don't think that Feedy's thing is at all connected with Ridley Scott's stuff, but I do know that he talked to Ridley Scott about doing it, and Scott liked him and wanted him to do an Alien movie.
That's actually the most surprising part of all this.
Yeah, considering he's usually very much like, don't touch my fucking toys, you douchebag.
But it's also like, similar to someone like John Carpenter, where he's like, okay, well, I did my thing with Halloween, for example, or with Ridley Scott, I did my thing with Alien. Then I tried to come back and do Prometheus and Covenant in the way I wanted to do those movies. People didn't love them, so now he's just like, okay, well, I'll just let other people go back to making the properties, and I'll cash the checks.
Pretty much.
Like, if as long as he's, he'll probably, I'm sure, be a producer on these things,
Hopefully.
just like Raimi and Campbell are with the Evil Dead stuff. They make fat checks off of these movies, without having to go through all of the trouble and stress of actually making the movie.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, if it's anywhere near the quality of Evil Dead remake, I mean, I'll be pretty excited. I think there's been a particular scene from the very end of that film that's been floating around Twitter, people being like, how did people not go see this movie?
A particular chainsaw scene.
Yeah. Oh, everything is all.
I still vividly remember seeing that movie at the midnight premiere in theaters when they still did midnight premieres.
I can't believe it's been 10 years.
Yeah.
That blew my mind and also I just felt very old when that happened. But I'm not very old, but it felt like it. But I mentioned David Fincher, and that was my roundabout way of segueing into talking about David Fincher's new film, The Killer, which we've talked about previously. It's based on a graphic novel, stars Michael Fassbender. It's going to be going to Netflix. It has been screened for Netflix as of a few days ago, and apparently left the entire room stunned. This quote here says, "It's an ice-cold thriller that has atmospheric dread all over it. There are neo-noir elements, very graphic violence, and it's also very entertaining."
Oh, Fincher did some neo-noir stuff, huh?
Oh, who would have thunk it?
Shocked.
That's strange.
I'm just glad we're not getting Mank 2.
I
Right,
thought
Electric
that
Boogaloo?
movie was well received, but you're the only person I know that watched it, and so you're the only opinion I have.
If you are a David Fincher fan, it's like the last thing in the world you would want to see him do. And I was excited for it because I like Citizen Kane and I like that subject matter, but he just found like the most boring way possible. I mean, it's a gorgeous black and white movie, but I have absolutely no desire to rewatch it, which is saying something because David Fincher has multiple 3+ hour movies that I've rewatched a bunch of times. So whatever, but that's some good buzz for something that's more in our wheelhouse.
Do we have a release date for
that? Not currently, but I assume since they're screening it, that means that it's mostly done, which means we'll probably see it drop within the year, if not next year.
Speaking of drops, Scream 6 is now on Paramount Plus. If anybody hasn't seen it yet and is interested and has that service.
Yeah, I've seen it twice now, and my opinion did not change on the rewatch. So if you want to hear what our opinions were, you don't have to scroll very far back to find our episode where we also brought back Final Cut for Scream 6. So go check that out. Speaking of things that are on Netflix, Black Mirror. You a fan of mirrors that
I can't
are
believe it's
creepy
getting a
in
6th
your
season.
phone?
I thought there was a big rights title dispute. Is Charlie Brooker back?
Mm-hmm. Well,
Wow.
And what he did in the meantime between that is he did that Kunk on Earth show.
Oh, that was him?
Yeah, that's like the thing that he had done before Black Mirror that they've done. Like it was a UK thing because he's from comedy, and that show is, oh man, that besides the echo fart is the hardest I've laughed in a long time.
Well, they also try to do that 2021 is dead or whatever. They tried to do that a couple years, and it was okay.
Well, we had Bandersnatch at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was between the last couple seasons or after the most recent. Anyway, I didn't watch the trailer for this yet, but the cast is pretty crazy. Aaron Paul's in there. Salma Hayek's in there. Tons of people. But yeah, it's getting a season 6. And Brooker said in his like quote for this that they didn't want to come back to Black Mirror unless they had a way to refresh the show in some way. So he was saying that they're doing some things in this season that were part of their like rule book of never go this far with Black Mirror. And so he said that we're breaking some of our own rules. We're taking things a little bit further than we ever have before. He said the core of every episode will still feel like Black Mirror, but they're going to be going crazier and into some like darker, weirder,
I'm
potentially
okay with
funny
this.
places.
I
And I
like
think that-
all the seasons to varying degrees, so I'm excited for it. I
Yeah.
mean, we were watching this shit years ago before it like blew
I was
up.
watching it when like it was, you had to like hunt it down on the internet because, you know, unless you were in the UK where it was on Channel 4 or whatever, you had to like hunt it down. And I remember having like the, you know, back when I used to pirate stuff before I turned into an upstanding citizen in society.
That would have been.
I had like all the Black Mirror episodes, so I could just
Yeah.
lend them on flash drives.
I mean,
to
yeah, it was
people
a
who
long
needed
time
them.
I want to say that might have been how I watched the first season of Black Mirror was from you.
Yeah, and it was like, that was like my cool, like little hidden secret of like, you want to see the most fucked up, like, crazy, like new Twilight Zone type show. So yeah, I'm interested, and I like that they recognize that they kind of, Black Mirror has at this point kind of turned into a joke of like anytime there's some dark story about technology, it's like, ooh, it's like an episode of Black Mirror. And
But
so
that's
it's like,
cool that it has.
It's
done
ubiquitous,
that, yeah.
ubiquitous now, but
It's
I mean,
it is the modern Twilight Zone in that way, because we say the same thing about Twilight Zone
It's
when
better than the modern Twilight Zone. Even, you know what I mean?
I mean,
gotten a lot more
fair.
seasons. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see what else we have on the docket.
Did you watch the trailer for Black Mirror 6?
I did not watch the trailer for that. I also did not watch the new trailer for The Flash because I know I'm going to see it a million times in theaters anyway. So there's no
you're
reason to
planning-
rush out.
So how much money? So 1,000 times. So you'll be making quite a bit of money for Warner Brothers Studios. It sounds like.
Not enough to get Batgirl.
Yeah, I didn't watch the trailer for it. I did watch Dan Murrell's short breakdown. CinemaCon is happening right now, where they actually just screened the entire movie for people at CinemaCon. The early buzz for it. They also just dropped the social media embargo on it, so people could give their reactions, and it's been extremely positive. A lot. I mean, and Murrell
If
said
you're
this in
gonna
his
see it
video
that
too,
early, like-
you have to remember that at a convention, especially something like CinemaCon, where the entire thing is about going and celebrating being part of the movie theater experience and stuff like that, everybody's hyped. It's like going to a midnight premiere. Like, you're going to come out with a little bit more, I think, positive. Like, I came out of Avatar: The Last Airbender, Shyamalan's one, going, that was kind of all right. I had a good time because I went to the midnight premiere because I was such a big Avatar, the show fan. And then obviously, like, almost immediately in hindsight was like, that movie fucking blew. But, you know, you have that hype. So, you know, I'm still keeping my expectations in check because I haven't really been excited for this movie at all. And also, I'm not. With Spider-Man, it was different because I genuinely, like, I was like, yes, just use my nostalgia against me. As much as I love Keaton and Batman, everything I've seen so far of him in this movie looks like shameless fan service.
Yeah.
And pretty ridiculous. But I could be totally wrong. And that's why I'm like, it is kind of cool. A lot of the reactions from people are like, this is one of the best superhero movies ever. And we'll see. Because at
I'm
this
just
point,
not a big fan of what Ezra Miller's been doing.
Well, and that's Merle was also
Outside
like,
of
yeah.
things.
Also, the narrative is of Hollywood is continuing to do its thing because most of the reviews so far have been like, while Ezra Miller has had some trouble in their past, hand wave, they're great in this and blah blah blah. And so it seems
I was
like,
waiting for Jonathan Majors to get the same treatment. Just be like, wow, Jonathan Majors did awful things.
They made a movie that people kind of liked, so now
Yeah.
they all of their sins are forgiven. It's gonna be very distracting for me watching this movie. That's the biggest thing that's kind of kept me from getting too excited about it. Is that I think that Ezra Miller is a very, very talented actor. We need to talk about Kevin. I think they are fucking brilliant in that movie, and I liked them in Perks of Being a Wallflower. But yeah, I mean, with all the stuff that we've read about for the past 2 years or whatever, 3 years that we've been waiting for this movie, it's going to be very distracting. But my heart and my butthole are open.
Why?
I just like to be open to receiving pleasurable cinema experiences.
Right
you know?
on. I don't know what theater
Well,
you're
and
going
then-
to, but I
and
got to
then-
get some tickets.
I'm just saying the butthole's
I go to the
open
Paul
because
Rubens Theater.
fart noise.
Popcorn buckets. Every seat is a popcorn bucket.
I feel bad that this is the second week in a row I've made that joke, and I really do like Paul Rubens and Pee Wee. But anyway,
Anyway,
That's besides the point.
that's right.
A lot of people are excited about The Flash. It comes out in like a couple weeks. So
Crazy,
that's
dude.
also why I didn't watch this trailer.
Yeah.
But I heard it doesn't really show too much new. But while we're on the subject of trailers, John, do you want to tell us how you feel about the new trailer for the new Hercule Poirot, Agatha Christie, A Haunting in Venice?
I think I'm gonna give it a classy like Kenneth Branagh nod, dude. I thought that
You were burnt. You're in denial about Death on the Nile, right?
I thought that Orient Express was fine. It was not like a movie I would have written home about in any way, shape, or form. But it was a decent watch. And I felt like Death on the Nile it was bad. I didn't enjoy the characters. I saw the twist coming a mile away, and I hadn't seen any of the original content or read the content.
There were no mums.
And it just was boring, and everything in it looked like all of like the green screen work and everything had gone back like several decades.
Almost like a colorized Sin City.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? Where everything feels like it's green screen for no purpose.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was doing something with it to be a comic book, but this wasn't.
Yeah. I didn't like it. I felt like they failed in every sense of the word, but enough old people went and saw it, so here's another one.
They also have a habit of just casting highly problematic actors in these movies, because the first one had Johnny Depp, then the second one had Armie Hammer, right?
Well, I mean, and to a degree, Gal Gadot.
Yeah, Gal Gadot, yeah. Imagine that. And I haven't seen the cast for this one, but I liked, when I heard the title, of course, you start anything with a haunting, and I'm like, okay, you have piqued my interest. I haven't seen the trailer yet, but I've heard a lot of people saying that it has like a cool gothic horror tone to it.
I'm a big Agatha Christie fan. So I'm all over this.
I mean, you are a gothic tone. I mean,
that's true. Yeah,
that's so true. And then also on top of that, Branagh hasn't done a horror thing since Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, so it's been quite a long time since he's tapped into this genre. So I'm interested, but I didn't watch Death on the Nile because Orient Express went in one ear and out the other. My train of thought with that movie was
come on,
completely derailed.
you gonna double down? I'm proud of you.
Yeah, I try. And then the last couple bits of news I have are that we have an official title for the next Conjuring film. It is called The Conjuring Last Rites.
Let's hope.
R-I-T-E-S. Last Rites. It's not going to be the last one. We're getting a TV show. We talked about that. So as far as we know, the same writer from The Devil Made Me Donuts is also writing this one.
Great.
Womp womp.
We don't know who is directing it. We know it's not going to be Juan. He's just going to be in a production role as far as we know,
Womp
which
womp.
seems to be his MO these days, because I'm sure that's
He's Aquamaning.
Yeah. So we don't really have many details beyond that, except that it'll probably come out sometime next year. So if you are still hyped for the Conjuring movies and just seeing a title makes you go, ooh, I'm going to go see that and get spooked, then good for you. You have a much more open mind than I do. And then this is just news for us. The creators of of Llamageddon have now released a teaser trailer for their new film, Alpacalypse,
Yeah,
about killer alpacas. We watched Llamageddon at one point,
we did.
and it was the dumbest shit,
loved
but
it.
we had a blast with
Yeah.
it. So we'll have to get together and maybe we'll break out the old commentary format and do like a little main feed commentary track for Alpacalypse.
There was also the Velocipaster.
Yeah.
And they were supposed to do an Outback Dracula, and I am still very interested in that. So I hope that, I don't even know if it may or may not have happened.
Good day,
at some
Mr.
point.
Harker.
I just remember sitting and watching Llamageddon, having like the same guy have like 47 different shirts.
And at first we were like, is that intentional?
And
And
it
then
was like,
once he had the 20th shirt on, we were like, this is
yeah.
very intentional. It's hilarious.
The last thing I think we should mention is that we got new shirts.
Oh, shit, dog.
So if you're interested, we were going to not release these, but I think we decided to release them, right?
Yeah, I mean, now that I've seen you wear it, and I know that the fancy QR code on the back works, they will go public on the shop. I'll say as of check-in today, Monday, when this
Yeah.
episode comes out, and I will have them up by then for you to peruse and purchase. You've seen the Visionary Director shirt on me. You've seen one version of the hoodie on John. He also got the other version.
Which I'll be fair, I like the black one better, just
Yeah.
as far as like the fit and everything. Like it's a nice hoodie.
Awesome. So yeah, check those out. PorcelainPeakShop.com.
We have these in kid sizes as well, so get your little critter all fitted up.
I did want to mention one last thing, and I don't want to go. I always do this with Chop Talk. I always
Okay.
go out on a slightly sour note, but I do feel like as massive Beetlejuice fans, we do
Yeah.
have to mention that sadly, yesterday Harry Belafonte passed away. He was 96 years old. Most people watching this or listening to this would recognize his music from Beetlejuice, Jump in the Line, Banana Boat. He hosted the Tonight Show a few times. That really successfully, really funny, very talented guy. And I actually did not know that he was still alive. So when I saw everybody posting about him on Twitter, I was like, oh, lots of love going around for Harry Belafonte today. And then I Googled him and was like, oh, unfortunately, it's because he passed away. But I did say, the circle of life balances things out. Apparently, Daniel Radcliffe and his significant other welcomed their first child.
Wow.
And I had this picture in my head as the little Harry Potter bitch nerd I am of just like how amazing, if, Radcliffe decides to do this, how amazing that would be to have Harry Potter read to you by Harry Potter, like as a kid. I mean, who knows how he feels about that, if he ever feels like he would want to read those books, but obviously it's a very big part of his life, and he probably would want to share that with his kid. So yeah, good news and bad news, but
I heard too that Beetlejuice 2 went into production.
I didn't mention it just because we've said the same thing over and over and over. Part of CinemaCon announcements was, yes, new Final Destination is definitely happening. Yes, new Beetlejuice is definitely
the
happening.
ambulance one?
I don't know. It just said Final
okay.
Destination 6, but we've talked about those bits of news repeatedly and still not seen those movies, so I'm going to stop talking about them until we get trailers for them.
Show me something more concrete.
Especially with Beetlejuice. I've been talking about that sequel since the first one came out. So.
I mean, they're shaking the cobwebs off of Keaton, so hopefully.
He never had cobwebs, baby.
Oh shit! That probably is why it's moving forward. Finally, now though, is that they're like, oh, okay, well, we're just gonna ride the Flash hype of him being in that.
Don't rush it.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. Anyway, all right, cool. Well, that's going to wrap it up for Chop Talk. Kind of a semi-sour note, but we'll go ahead and get started with that trivia.
That Christmas house of wax, the fog, piranha. It's one of those, right? Right?
We got no gimmicks this week. We're just going to spit on this thing and get started. So we're playing Horror Trivial Pursuit. We're going to go around in a circle after we read the category, read into each other. I'm going to read to John. John's going to read to Anthony. Anthony will be back to me until we crown a winner or winners. Are we
And
ready,
currently,
fellas?
I'm crowning.
Ready as I'll ever be.
Great. The first category is...
Monster.
John Elsa Lanchester played dual roles of the titular bride in The Bride of Frankenstein, and what author in the prologue of the film?
I'm gonna say Mary Shelley.
Ooh, this wants you to be more specific.
She actually played Stephanie Meyer.
No, that's fine, but the card does say Mary
Wollstonecraft.
Shelley.
Yeah, Mary Shelley is going to be the correct answer.
Do they do that for like women? Do they do like the third, or how does that? You know what I mean? How does that work?
I don't even think they do like junior or anything.
Yeah, I've never seen it, and that's the patriarchy for you.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
It's all about carrying on the man's name and all that. I'm like, the quicker I can get rid of my last name, the better. Sorry, Dad.
You're like, I'm not trying to be remembered as Stockton's mayor.
I know.
Anthony, what actor played the iconic monster in Frankenstein from 1931?
What are the chances? That's Boris Karloff.
It is indeed Boris Karloff.
Woo! Good job, fellas.
Don't want to see him when he gets Boris Karloff. You know what I'm saying?
I don't want my car on my lawn. It's all right, trashy.
Tone, in Aileen from 1979. What is the designation of the planetoid upon which the Nostromo finds the derelict spacecraft?
What's the name of the planet?
Yeah. In layman's terms. Yeah. Where's that little postcard thing I gave you?
You looking for like LV?
I don't know.
Why is that? Okay, I don't. LV.
Your card is it's got a lot of you questions, so I'm not giving you any help this week.
I can't remember the number.
I think I know what it is, but
LV
come on, baby.
137.
Is it 429?
Ooh, you're way off. You're very close. It's LV426.
Ah.
You got your 6 and your 9.
Yeah, I got
Nice.
I got it flipped upside down.
We were playing Zelda earlier, and I threw a bomb, and he was like, "Oh, just rewind it." And I was like, "Yeah, but look how many bombs we have." It's in 69, and he was like, "Nice."
I just imagine somebody getting hung up while 69ing on whether they're the 6 or the 9. Like, am I the 6 or the 9? Why does it matter?
And then just going, "Nice." All right. Well, fuck. You guys are on the board, and I am not, and we're moving into
The eyeball zone.
Gore/disturbing.
John. What famous co-director was an assistant editor on Evil Dead from 1981? Come on, guys.
What?
What a cool question.
Okay, so give me that again.
Okay.
Hit
What
me,
famous
baby.
co-director was an assistant editor on Evil Dead?
Famous
many layers.
co-director? Like they are famous for co-directing something?
That is correct, yes. We've definitely talked about this.
And when you hear it, you'll go, son of a bitch.
Okay, there we go.
It's magic.
You know.
I do love the cars.
Which one is it?
I know, right? 50-50 chance.
I'm going to go with Joel Cohen.
Oh, baby! That's Ethan.
I'm just kidding. I would be so mad. I would be so fucking pissed.
Slide me some skin, you fucking idiot.
It is Joel. You are correct, sir. You're 2 for 2. Oh, that was stupid.
Anthony, tanning beds caused the demise of how many characters in Final Destination 3 from 2006?
I'm pretty sure it's just the 2 women.
Women. The answer is 2. You are correct.
Nice. That still is one of the more horrific death scenes in any of the Final Destinations. Like, it still gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah.
Really well done.
Yeah, I used to work for a tanning salon.
You did. I remember
And I was
that.
like, oh, this is
I remember.
terrifying.
I remember us
How
texting
people
and you just
died.
being hella bored.
And shit.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That and there's a scene in one of them where the girl is on the gymnastics beam and there's like a nail sitting there and she keeps bouncing over it and you're just waiting for her to step on it.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Which one that is?
It's in 4 or 5. Tone, for your eyeball zone question, what was the tagline for The Fly from 1986 that was also spoken in the film by Veronica as a warning to the girl Seth brings back from the bar? You wouldn't. I mean, I think you would have gotten it just from what was the tagline of The Fly, and then they had to just spell it out for you. But
Oh, is it? It's one that doesn't fit, right? Kind of. Is it? Be afraid, be very afraid.
it is indeed, yeah, because she's saying
And
to
you wouldn't think that was like for the fly.
yeah, but then when you see it in the movie, you're like, oh, she's warning the girl, like, you better stay away from him because he's turning into a bugman.
Yeah.
Old Jeff Bugman.
Bug Bloom.
Cool. So we're on the board now. I got the 1, and you guys got the 2s.
Yeah.
Sweet. And we're moving into
Brain worms.
Psychological.
John in The Invisible Man from 1933. What is the name of the madness-inducing drug that is responsible for the condition of Dr. Jack Griffin?
Shit, I don't fucking know.
It's that see-through juice.
The invisibility potion.
He drank Pepsi Clear.
Crystal Pepsi. It is called monocaine.
What error?
My name is Monocaine.
I won't bury you, Bruce.
The diamond is invisible as a man.
I won't bury another member of the invisible family
Because I can't
because I can't find him.
Anthony, what Get Shorty and Men in Black director served as the cinematographer for Misery from 1990?
Ooh.
Barry Sonnenfeld?
It is Barry Sonnenfeld.
Yeah, I remember distinctly. I think I might have brought it up when we talked about Misery. Oh, yeah, during our King Week, because that blew my mind. I was like, oh, shit. He worked on this.
Baby.
And I always recognize he has the very like Tim Burton-y font that he uses on all of his movies, like Men in Black and stuff. Anywho, Tone, for your category question. When Psycho from 1960 was released, who demanded theaters have no late admission policy for the film?
Alfred Hitchcock.
It was indeed Alfred Hitchcock.
Woo!
He said, don't let them bitches in after the movie starts. And you know what? We could use an Alfred Hitchcock at every movie we go to.
I will say the crowd for Evil Dead Rise was pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah, that was...
The wall definitely helps.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, there was a couple like people cheering at certain shit, but I was like, whatever, this is great.
Yeah, that's... I mean,
outside of the normal people getting up to go to the bathroom, which I'm never going to get mad at that because...
You're like respect, brother.
Yeah.
Why did you empty my thimble while you're out there?
P recognized P.
But yeah, very good theater experience. We'll
Right.
get to it.
Okay, cool. So at the end of that round, John and I are now tied, and Anthony's got 3.
Yep.
And we're moving into
Paranormal.
in Paranormal Activity 2 from 2010. What is the gender of the firstborn child required as payment for an ancestral demonic deal?
I'm gonna.
Was that your Roger Rabbit?
I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say male.
That is correct. Back tied for first.
Anthony, in Sinister from 2012, Elson Oswald is which of the following? A cop, a novelist, a painter, or a professor?
He's a novelist. That's why they move into the house, because he considers himself a Truman Capote type.
You may be a novelist, but I'm a master debater. It is correct. It is a novelist.
Sweet. Tone, in The Exorcist from 1973. Sorry, I always do that. Drop the in, just the. The Exorcist from 1973 was based on a novel of the same name by what author?
William?
Oh, yeah.
Is it glad no tuggers are on the table?
Blatty?
It is indeed.
William Peter Blatty?
Yeah, but the card actually just says William Blatty, so you fucking nailed it.
I mean, either
What
way,
did
we
you
would.
say?
It's Peter is the middle name.
He's usually known as William Peter Blatty, but the thing that could make that confusing is that William Friedkin directed the movie, and then Blatty directed the third movie.
I have that somewhere.
The book?
Yeah.
Remember last week when
mustn't
John
read
was
from it.
trying so hard to read the Psycho author's name on that?
He also wrote a sequel book called something else.
Legion?
Yes, that is it.
That's what
still-
3 is based
I
on.
still
is it?
can't read that name that's on the side of that fucking
Block,
book.
baby. Block.
Blockhead?
I blocked it out of my memory, so
Wah, wah, wah.
let's move on.
John and I tied at 3. Anthony's sitting at 4.
Killer!
And we're moving into Killer. John, what co-director of The Red Shoes from 1948 also directed Peeping Tom from 1960?
Bitch, I don't fucking know.
What is with all these co-director questions you're getting?
It's so random.
Oh, I don't know.
We've definitely said this on the show before, but I never would have gotten it.
Yeah, I don't. Fucking not Alfred Hitchcock.
Well, that's correct. I don't know what to do here. This is unprecedented. It is Michael Powell.
Okay.
The other co-director of The Red Shoes was Emmerich Pressburger.
Interesting.
There you go.
Anthony, in Theater of Blood from 1973, the victims are critics of whom? Edward Lionheart, Edwina Lionheart, Peregrine Devlin, or Oliver Larding?
I know it's Vincent Price, but I don't know what his character name is. Can you say the first one and the last one again?
Edward Lionheart or Oliver Larding?
Oh, those all sound awful, buddy.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a wild guess and say it's the last one.
It's the first one.
God damn it!
Edward Lionheart is the correct answer.
Oh well.
Sweep off the table.
Echoey fart sound. Tone, in The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974, how is the hitchhiker related to Leatherface?
Come on, baby.
I don't remember.
You better remember.
Well, it's either cousin or brother.
It could be both.
This is Texas we're talking about.
They're probably married too.
Not in Texas, they're not.
Yeah. I will say brother.
It is indeed his brother.
There you go. Good boy. Good job.
I got one brother who's a hitchhiker and another brother who's a Leatherface.
All right, so John, you're sitting at 3, and I've got 4, and you've got 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're moving into
International.
cool. John and Rec from 2007. What is the name of the television show hosted by protagonist Angela Vidal? That is a hard fucking question.
Yeah. I haven't
That's
seen
good
this.
trivia,
Yeah,
though.
I haven't seen this recently. So.
Nick at Night.
It's called Get Wrecked. Yeah, I don't
Is
know.
that
It's,
your real guess?
Yeah.
isn't
I
it
don't
like late night something or
While
something
you're
after
sleeping.
dark? Oh, yeah.
She goes and examines jobs that people do in the middle of the night. That's a good question, though.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Like, sometimes those questions are fucking stupid.
Anthony, in your international question that you won't know anything about probably. In Satan's Rhapsody from 1917, what does Countess Alba de Altravita give up in exchange for regaining her youth?
What's the name of the... Oh. Well, it's Rhapsody. So I'm just going to take a wild guess and say her voice, her ability to sing, her voice.
It's love.
That's dumb.
I like the thought process.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah,
that, I
to
think
me, that makes total
more,
sense.
That makes
Yeah.
more sense than this, probably.
It was actually her pet snail.
I'm going to stick to Rhapsodies that are, Rhapsodies that are bohemian. Thank you very much. Tone, in Train to Bussy from 2016, what...
Train to Busey. Hey, Rand, you want to hop on board?
That's the name of his...
I got these zombies in the back, man. They're gonna be super fucking cool,
That's
bro.
the what was one of the Buseys in recently? Something that I watched, and I can always
it was Jake, maybe. I remember you talking about it though.
yeah, and
Who
I
did
can always
Stranger
tell.
Things?
I can always tell by his like they have just fucking crazy teeth.
Yeah.
like just creepy smiles. Anyway, yeah, in Train to Bussy, what fictional beings plague this? This is what you were talking about the dumb questions. What fictional beings plague the protagonists?
I mean, really, I think it's a regret based off the relationship with his wife.
Yeah,
Zombies.
I got this divorce in the back, man. It's super fucking cool, bro.
Stay away from that guy. He might kill you in the end.
where'd you say this train's going?
It's going to Bussy.
Yeah, you're correct. They're zombies.
I think, is that for the dub?
That is for the win.
Well, rip my Gorilla Glued crown off.
And call me Shirley.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Can't keep a streak going forever, so
But you can't keep a good dog down. You know what I'm saying?
You can't.
I was starting to get much too powerful to where I was starting to lose control, and some mutations were starting to happen, much like a film we're about to talk about.
And nobody wants that. Yes, we're going to take a short break, and then we are going to dive into Akira.
Anime! That's wow!
Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/porcelain peak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more. Join the Creep Cult. $5 a month at patreon.com/porcelainpeak for exclusive content, merch discounts, and more.
Hey, you want to see something really scary?
Welcome back. We're going to kick off animation talking about Akira. Anthony, tell us about the background on this movie. Who are the players?
Yeah, real quick before we
right.
get into the film, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Erica over at Horror Cafe Podcast, and also our friend Sam, the one that we've played D&D with. He reached out. Both were very excited about us covering Akira. I let Sam in on a couple of the movies that we may or may not be covering going forward, but they were super pumped, so I hope you guys enjoy this episode when you listen to it. I have been very excited for us to cover anime films, and Erica also said that she thought that anime was a great play on words, and I said, hey, anything beats James Wanuary. And she was like, no, that's not true. James Wanuary was good too. I was like, I know, just, I like to throw shade.
Hilarious.
No, it works for us.
Yeah.
And it was fun. But yeah, Akira, if you have not heard about this film, it dropped in 1988. It is directed by Katsuhiro Otomo. He is also the man who created the manga that this is based off of. The film runs for a little over 2 hours. And to give you a quick little summary, as Letterboxd put it, the tagline is, Neo Tokyo is about to explode. A secret military project endangers Neo Tokyo when it turns a biker gang member into a rampaging psychic psychopath that only 2 teenagers and a group of psychics can stop. So if that sounds interesting to you, stop right now and go watch this, because Akira, part of the reason I wanted to start with it was because I bought this beautiful 4K edition for Tone over here, I don't know how long ago, and
Not that long ago.
it feels like it's been a long time. And I needed to find an excuse to make him watch it.
Christmas, maybe?
Not this.
Who knows? Anyway,
Last Christmas.
It was back when
will
Neo
say
Tokyo was just Tokyo. That's
that-
all I'll say.
it was fucking gorgeous. I did watch the actual disc.
I'm glad, yeah.
Yeah, and I was blown away by the way it looks. It's fucking fantastic. The transfer that they did holds up.
Yeah, so this movie was groundbreaking in a lot of different ways. This pretty much kicked off manga and anime as a thing that Western audiences, American audiences pretty much,
And European, I think.
and European, yeah, it pretty much kicked off the craze that has gone on, for the last 30 years around anime and manga. This movie is responsible for things like Dragon Ball and Naruto and One Piece and all those, big anime manga series, Pokemon, yeah. And tons of other inspiration that I will get into when we get more into this. But so there's a lot of stuff in this that people have probably seen in other movies or in GIFs. But like I said, the basic plot is that in the beginning we see that Tokyo has been exploded. And since then, a Neo Tokyo has been built like in some reclaimed land in the middle of Tokyo Bay, and this Neo Tokyo is a very like cyberpunk. I mean, obviously, all of the cyberpunk movement basically stems from this and Blade Runner, basically. And so there's like this crazy cyberpunk Neo Tokyo future. I think it's 2019 that this is supposed to take place in.
Super weird.
Yeah, they're prepping for the 2020 Olympic Games in Tokyo. A lot of people freaked out that this movie and the manga predicted the future because 2020 was the year that Tokyo was supposed to host the Olympics.
But then it got canceled, much like in the movie, right?
Yeah, crazy. So this Neo Tokyo is full of criminals and biker gangs and extremists.
And some people were just trying to have dinner.
And some people just trying to have dinner. And in the course of the main character, Kaneda's biker gang, the Capsules, they're running around the city. Him and his childhood friend Tetsuo. Tetsuo ends up running into a creepy old-looking kid, gets into an accident, and because of that whole mix-up of this kid that we later find out is part of this psychic experiment, he is then taken into a facility and experimented on, and the movie kind of follows his journey of awakening his psychic powers and using them much like the movie Chronicle,
I was
which
about to
is
say,
heavily
yes.
inspired by this, like pretty much the same story, just done more boringer. He was kind of a fucked up kid to begin with who had some inferiority issues, and he uses his newfound psychic powers to wreak havoc. And then we're also following Kaneda and his adventures through Neo Tokyo and finding out what's going on with all of this.
With Kai?
Yeah, so there's K and there's also a Kai. It becomes very confusing. There's Kaneda, there's K. K is the resistance member who he helps get out of jail by tricking the cops, and then Kai is the like other biker gang member who I think survives when Tetsuo goes to the shop. But anyway, like I said, spoilers going forward. But what did you guys think of this movie? What are your thoughts?
I thought it was about motorcycles.
Yeah.
Or whatever those are. I did not know.
Well, the shot that everybody is familiar with is the sliding.
It's literally
motorcycle.
what's on the cover of that. I'm pretty sure.
Well, in this, he's like sitting on a. It's.
I think if you open the
throne.
thing, it's.
Anyway, so I thought that that's what this movie was about, and I was very surprised when it started getting hella weird. It's very fucking graphic, which I thought was really cool. I mean, that guy at the beginning just gets blasted.
Yeah, it's a very brutal movie, which I had completely forgotten about. But yeah, he has the very iconic red motorcycle with all of the like random like the Canon and Citizen stickers and stuff on it. But speaking of the Akira slide, I do have a list here of movies and cartoons and TV shows that have been inspired specifically by that one shot in the movie. It's pretty long. It's crazy. So these are all projects that have copied that shot in some fashion. Batman the Animated Series, something called You're Under Arrest, Gargoyles the Animated Series, Airmaster, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles the Animated Series, something called Yakate Japan, a show called Super Robot Monkey Team Hyperforce Go, Teen Titans, the original series from 2005, Gurren Lagann, which I assume is also an anime, Star Wars The Clone Wars, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Fresh Pretty Cure, Lupine 3 versus Detective Conan, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, Durarara, Adventure Time, Clarence, Ready Player One, Marvel's Spider-Man, X-Men Origins Wolverine, and most recently, Nope, Jordan Peele's from 2022, when Keke Palmer's character does her slide with the flag thing at the end. That is a direct Akira reference. So, yeah, I also had the exact same thought when I went into this movie the first time, thinking that it was all about the biker gangs and it was going to be kind of like a Warriors type situation of like these different warring biker gangs like cruising around Neo Tokyo. But no, it's all about this these like psychic kids and the government experiments. And basically at the first explosion that destroyed Tokyo was caused by some mysterious figure called Akira, that has since disappeared or died. We're not really sure until toward the end of the movie.
And has become something of a deity among the people of Neo Tokyo,
so you have these,
so they worship him.
Yeah, you have these cultists that worship Akira, and then you also have these scientists / like military guys who are trying to replicate the Akira experiment, and you also have a faction of people who don't want that to happen, obviously, because it blew up the entire city last time, and so they're trying to keep Akira locked away. But there seems to be potential in Tetsuo to maybe be close to the power that Akira was, or be like a reincarnation of some kind of Akira. And Tetsuo, he as his powers progress, he decides to go on a mission. He discovers that they supposedly put Akira into some sort of cryogenic chamber that is buried underneath the Olympic Stadium that's being built. So he ends up toward the end of the movie going on a mission to find Akira, where it is revealed that in the movie version of this story, they pulled him apart, dissected him, and have been keeping all of his different body parts in these cryogenically frozen jars.
Like a mummy.
Which I also won't explain any further to not ruin things for people, but it's also a plot bait that is like ripped bar for bar in Resident Evil Village.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think once you've seen this movie, you'll probably, because I have another list here of things that have just been inspired by Akira in general, and when you look at this, it's just like everything. Everybody takes something from this, but
or took something from something that took something from this.
Yeah, and then we talked about how Akira is
right.
obviously very inspired by things like Terminator and Blade Runner, and the creator has been open about this. But something that we talked about with our Godzilla episode is sort of the like social political climate that influenced what makes this scary, because this is very similar to Godzilla about that like post-atomic bomb fear in Japan. And apparently Japan was very much like this post-atomic bomb, where when they were trying to rebuild, it was like a complete shit show with crime and poverty and gangs and extremists and people trying to reform the government and new parties popping up and all this crazy shit as fallout from World War II. And so
it's also, I think, part of where like the Yakuza originated from was from like post like nuclear fallout, like crime waves and stuff.
Wow.
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so the creator wanted to basically use sci-fi as a way to explore that, and then also similar to like what we were talking about in Infinity Pool, explore the nature of what it is to be a human, and in this, the psychic powers kind of, there's some connection between these kids who have this psychic power and some like beyond plane of existence, that the stronger they become, the more they seem to be able to manipulate matter at like an alchemical level, and they can eventually, toward the end, they seem to be able to create entire new universes and different dimensions and stuff. So they're way past the kind of like Jean Grey type telekinetic stuff of just like, I can make things float and fly around. But yeah, so you're also getting to explore like the teenagers going through adolescence, and that the changes in your body are actually like very viscerally expressed as this horrific and gorgeously animated mutation. That was the other thing from this movie that I had seen a million times in like Tumblr GIFs and always wondered what the fuck crazy movie is this from. But when he just starts like uncontrollably mutating into like a bunch of different fetuses and hands and flesh and stuff.
Did this come before or after Tetsuo Iron Man?
This came a year before, but the word Tetsuo literally translates to Iron Man.
Oh, okay.
So like the movie Tetsuo the Iron Man is just
redundant.
Yeah, and I'm sure in Japan it's just called Tetsuo, but yeah. And
so was that inspired by this or the manga to some degree?
So these are both this and that are both inspired by a manga that came out before both of these.
Oh wow.
That I forget the name of, but the creator of Akira took most of the names from that manga because he was such a big fan, and took big plot elements too. So again, it ties into that whole like he was heavily inspired by a bunch of shit, and then his thing went on to inspire a bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
so all the cyclical nature of art, man.
Yeah, because I mean, as soon as I heard Tetsuo, I was like, okay, so that's got to be connected somehow.
But also with the body horror and the metal arm and everything, like it feels like I would be surprised if Takashi Miike didn't take some influence from having seen or read parts of Akira.
Yeah.
When the movie came out, the manga still had, I think, 2 more years of volumes to come out.
So the endings are different.
The story is pretty different, but the basic core of it is the same. And I think it's because it's made by the same creator. Mm-hmm. And he talked in the production of this how it was a really shitty situation, but that he had to cut so much and that he had to work the way he did. He said it was the worst decision he ever made, trying to make this
a movie instead of a series.
Well, just trying to make them at the same time. He's like, I should have just waited for the manga to finish, but he was given the opportunity and didn't want to, miss out on it. And he actually ended up transitioning from exclusively a manga artist into being an anime director because of this movie.
Oh, wow.
So the way it worked is he would pull several all-nighters, because he wrote and drew the manga like most manga creators do. So he'd write and draw, pass it off to his inkers. They'd do like several all-nighters, and then he'd turn the pages in and immediately go into the animation studio and go to work on the movie. So things that are expanded on, the book story is a lot more about the biker gangs. Like there's a lot more of like when Tetsuo first escapes from being experimented on, and he has his like kind of weaker like early stage psychic powers. He uses that to take control of the Clowns biker gang.
I did read that, yeah.
And he launches like an all-out war between all of the biker gangs. So Kaneda gets all of the other biker gangs together, and they all go off to face against Tetsuo, but he's too powerful, and he basically just wrecks them all. And then there's some other stuff with like American forces coming in and like sending troops in to try to stop him. Akira is actually alive and a person in the book.
Oh, shit.
When he finally pulls him out of the ground and takes him out, he's just a little boy. But he has like this blank, like catatonic expression because his powers have completely rewritten his mind and his personality. So he just goes through the rest of the comic like as this basically ticking time bomb. And the second explosion that destroys Neo Tokyo is caused by Akira. At one point, they're like running around the sewer tunnels, and I think he gets like shot or something. And he, of course, like gets really emotional and explodes.
Yeah.
And so the order of things is mixed around. But they do eventually end up at the Olympic Stadium. And then there's some other stuff that goes on past that about like the city starting to like drop its ruined facade, and you start to see like the old gorgeous buildings of Tokyo appear at the end, and it's almost like a rebirth of the city. And
Wow, weird.
And it's not as like weird and impressionistic.
It's
as it is in
a
the
weird movie, and I think it's a little bit too long. I feel like they could still cut some stuff out. But I mean, overall, I think I enjoyed it. It's just fucking bizarre, and it takes quite a bit of time to get going.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, we haven't even really talked about it yet, but the animation.
I mean, you can just not even have anything on and watch it, like the sound anyway. Like just the visuals of this fucking movie.
Yeah,
It would make a great like
ridiculous.
background party mood thing to just put on and just occasionally just like get caught up in. The movie consists of 2,212 shots made up of 160,000 single pictures, 2 to 3 times more than a usual animated film, using 327 different colors, which is a record set for an animation film, 50 of which were exclusively created for the film.
They created colors. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, the reason for these numbers being so high is that most of the movie takes place at night, which is a setting that is traditionally avoided by animators because you have to use more color to make things look good. And boy, does this movie use more color. It dawned on me while watching this how amazing animation is for just doing things that you're never going to be able to pull off. I mean, now you could, but I even a live action version of this, I don't think
But
would come
still
anywhere
animation to a degree, right? It's
near. Yeah,
computer
and you
animation.
could say that something like Blade Runner 2049, I think, comes pretty damn close, and also 2049 takes from this and makes their future look even more like Akira than the original Blade Runner did. But just the way they're able to use color and the way they're able to use like the perspective and the scale so that the city just looks fucking massive in the background, and you can see so much little detail in everything, and how everything's all like ruined and all of the neon. And then I think one of the other iconic pieces of animation for this is the like lens flares that all of the bikes do when they're racing down the streets. How you always get those like really bright headlights, and then it'll go bing with the lens flare. I guess the way they did that was they would just cut out that part of the cell and literally just like let the background light table shine through.
Weird.
So it's like legit light that's coming through on those cells. But it's absolutely gorgeous. And if you're watching a 4K version, or even I don't know like what quality the Hulu version is, but I know it's the 2013 Funimation re-release, which does have the more superior English dub. I was concerned about that because I know Funimation has a bad track record with some projects about having shitty like censored English dubs of shows and stuff. So when I saw Funimation at the beginning, I was like, fuck, did I pick the wrong one? But no, I guess that's if you're gonna watch it in English, that's the
one to watch,
the preferred way to watch it.
What animation shows or movies do a lot is when there's a scene where there's not anything happening, you can really see the difference. Like it's a static thing, and so the animation for moving stuff looks slightly brighter usually. And with this one, it still does it, so you could tell like what's going to be moving and what's going to be interacted with in some scenes, but they do a good job of blending it more than in something like Looney Tunes or whatever. You know what I mean? I know it's very different, but usually you can tell like, okay, that's in the background, that's not going to be touched or moved, that's just there. And then the moving part is slightly brighter, and in this, like I said, you can see it, but it's blended way better than typical animation.
Well, I think it gives a like a level of depth of field that is only really paralleled by like real life, you know, having that actual like the being able to choose different lenses and make different like focal length adjustments and things like that. They do a really good job with perspective in this to make things feel like they're coming at you or they're moving away from you or like you're looking at something from a specific angle. And like I said, on top of that, with the beautiful imagery and with how much the colors all pop, it's a visual spectacle.
Yeah, and I felt like even down to there's scenes where it's just, you know, some dogs running around a corner and hitting some trash and coming down the street, and it's just like they took every single situation and frame and said, how can we make this the most kinetically interesting version of this action? Even if it's just dogs running around a corner and knocking into some trash, the dogs look like they're fucking booking it. And just the attention to detail and the way when he was writing the manga, he talked about how he was like, I wanted to tell the story with as few words as possible and with as much movement so that people would not be able to put it down because the pacing would be so fast that they're just like. And yeah, I know you said that the movie felt like it's a bit too long. I think that it would feel way fucking longer if it didn't have the quick, like I said, kinetic style of animation that it has. It does sag a bit in the middle, though. And really, for me, I'm always like, okay, you got the super badass stuff at the beginning with the bikes and the city and everything, and then the middle, I'm like, this is kind of interesting. You have like the nightmare sequence, or the sequence where the telekinetic kid or the psychic kids are trying to like attack Tetsuo in the hospital or whatever in the facility, and so they like collect all these animals and try to kill him through like psychic hallucinations. That stuff's cool, but the whole time I was just like waiting for them to get to the stadium to do the big final battle where he transforms.
Into a very like Dragon Ball Z character.
Yeah, he's got the hair standing up and the
strike that, reverse it. But
Dragon Ball Z is doing a very Akira.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I do think that what I said before about a series potentially being more apt for this like story, because it does feel a little long. I don't think that it's like overly long, like egregiously long. I don't feel like it's, I mean, there's maybe things that you could have cut, but I also feel like there's also a lot of details and a lot of world building you could have really dug into and taken more time with had you done like a limited run, like single season even of like an hour long television show.
Yeah, and I want to agree with you there. I think that we either needed a lot more in like a series format
or a
less.
little less.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I'm shocked that because the manga, was also very popular and successful and ended differently enough that they didn't do like a Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood
or Hellsing
Dragon Ball Z
Ultimate
Kai, or like any of that stuff where they do like a new version that is more faithful to the source material.
I think it's because there's no filler in this. I think that everything is condensed, and I think that so many people are in love with the film. I mean, completely outside of the manga. It may just be that they feel like their audience would be halved by comparison, whereas looking at the fan base that was built around something like Full Metal Alchemist, and then them saying, hey, we're glad that you really enjoyed this. We're going to bring back the same voice actors to play the same characters, and we're going to do this again, and we're going to make sure that we cut out all the filler and make it match the manga. And on top of that, the things that they did later on in that manga are fucking mind-blowingly crazy, and they just take things even further than the creators of the show could have taken it.
Yeah, I definitely think it's just like nobody's wanted to touch a classic like this.
They want to.
Well, I mean, yeah, and that's
happening.
something else that I'm glad that you brought that up.
Have you heard that Taika Waititi is
currently the man with the plan, apparently?
What do you think about that as far as this adaptation goes? I know you like Taika. But what do you think about Taika doing
I don't like
live
it.
action Akira?
I don't like it at all.
Yeah, I think we were in the same boat.
I feel like this is like
I hate it actually.
this is a very serious property, and I
Exactly
feel
what I
I mean,
said.
like, I'm not saying that
the
I
dude
don't.
can't take anything seriously.
I'm not saying that I think that there's no possibility that Taika makes a serious film. I just don't think that he tries to make a serious film in this particular instance. He sees pretty animation and things drawn on a page or whatever, and is like, oh, I can make that funny.
right.
And while there are funny comedic moments in this, it's not a comedy.
No.
And it's very brutal. And the subject matter is also very dark. It's about kids being experimented on and cities being blown up and, you know, the fallout from wars and stuff. Like, it's not something that you can just go, and then the goats screamed or whatever. And it was funny.
I would love if he proved me wrong. I mean, I'm
That's what I said too. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, prove me wrong, YTD.
Yeah, I would be happy with that. I mean, and I know that, like, looking from something like Jojo Rabbit and the scene in the courtyard, like,
Yeah.
he could definitely pull it off, but it seems like his moments of seriousness are all fleeting. Like, there are moments of Love and Thunder that have some really serious, heavy tone, and then it's immediately like dashed to the side for the next comedy bit.
Right.
And I think that that's going to be the tough part, is that this can't be a comedy forward property.
Well,
At least if you want to be faithful to the source
At
material.
least if you don't want to piss off everybody that's going to want to go see the movie.
Yeah.
Which is only probably going to be Akira fans. But the good news is, as far as I could tell from looking into it, that plan with him has been put on hold because he opted to go do the Thor movies.
And I think he said he was going to revisit it after the Star Wars movie.
Yeah, and by that time, I don't think that he'll even still be attached, because this movie has had something like 10 writers and 5 different directors over the past like 20 years attached to doing live action. It's jumped from studio to studio who have gotten the rights.
I think I just want live action at all.
Leo's been a big proponent for it too.
I would rather see this stay in animation and, like I said, do a series.
Well, it's just like, it was what I was saying is this. It dawned on me while I was watching this how I feel like this is a movie that really, like, this world really only works in animation, in my opinion. As effectively as it does, like the body horror stuff at the end, like the fluidity of the transformation and the way they're able to do that. Like, yeah, you could probably kind of replicate that in CG and make it kind of gross, but on that scale, like, it's just not going to be as visceral, and because you have there's so much stylization that your brain is never going like, that's not realistic with an animated movie. But you're going to be doing that with any sort of live action thing, you know, even though live action now, when you're talking about these Disney remakes and stuff, just means CG movies.
Yeah.
And additionally, kind of what we were talking about earlier, this movie takes place at night, but it is still very vibrant. And if current Hollywood trends continue, movies are just hella fucking dark, and you can't see shit anyway, and that's not going to work for a movie like this.
I think
You know what I mean?
if we're talking about the possibility of a live action working, there are 2 directors that I can think of that I feel like would do a really great job.
James Cameron.
James Cameron is one that I wasn't thinking of, but it's a possibility.
I just think he has the resources, you know, technologically to pull it off, and he did Terminator.
And he could probably find a blob at the bottom of the ocean.
I think Denis could do it. I mean,
he has done.
Yeah, I mean, doing Blade Runner 2049, I mean, he definitely has. And then also Dune. I think there's definitely some crossover in there that makes all of the components of this work.
Transcending your mind through visions. And
Yes.
All, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The other one would be a weirder take, but I think that Bong Joon-ho could do it.
Yeah, I could see it because Bong Joon-ho has always done the like serious subject matter with blending in the comedy.
Yeah,
like the inherent comedy of the like ridiculous situation the characters are in, and that's the balance to walk. With someone like Cameron, I don't think he would ever touch it, obviously because of other things he has going on.
He's got the next like 10, 15 years of his career planned out already.
He's overbooked.
Denis, I could see doing it, but while Denis is obviously a very competent and talented guy who makes gorgeous movies, I don't feel like he has the flair. Like, you need somebody that really has like a flair for, and I don't know how familiar he is with anime stuff. Like, I feel like you need to know somebody. You need to be somebody who like gets the anime thing, gets the style. I don't know. I'll have to think on it. But
I also don't think he's the kind of person who likes to walk back over his own work, and I feel like this would be a lot of walking back over his own work.
oh yeah, because I'm sure they just looked at parts of Akira when they were making Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I got my little list, my long list
Let's have it.
of
I've been ready. I love it.
projects inspired. These are fucking movies and TV shows.
John, see if you can name one.
Oh, piss.
The
That
Matrix.
is not on the list. That is on the list.
Okay.
Ultraviolet.
Maybe.
Tron.
Maybe. Let me read the list and we'll find out. Inspired a wave of Japanese cyberpunk works, including manga and animated series Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah.
We're gonna find out.
I can tell just from the little bit I've seen of that.
Yeah.
Yep. Battle Angel Alita.
Yeah.
Totally. Cowboy Bebop. Totally.
Yeah.
Something called Serial Experiments Lane. Something
Cameron did
called
do that one though, right? Or produce.
Battle Angel.
Yeah.
Yes, that's okay. I think that's why in my head I was thinking that he has some interest or connection to
Yeah.
manga and like this whole cyberpunk thing.
But he called it Alita Battle Angel.
They did that because they wanted to be able to have Alita be the title of the sequels, and then and then Battle Angel, and then
How'd that work out?
right, and then right here, live action Japanese films such as Tetsuo the Iron Man. So yes, was inspired by this. Video games such as Hideo Kojima's Snatcher, Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy VII. Outside of Japan, Akira has influenced a ton of Hollywood films: The Matrix, Dark City, Kill Bill, Chronicle, Looper with the psychic powers and the Rainmaker and all that. The Dark Knight, his bike.
Yeah.
Totally reminds me of Kaneda's bike in this. Midnight Special, Inception, Godzilla, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
How does that?
The
There's
animation
a lot
style.
of anime influence in that. It's pretty tight. Batman Beyond, obviously that whole
I was
future
thinking that too because of
Neo
the
Gotham or whatever.
Well,
yeah.
and like the clowns, right? Like
Yeah.
the gang of clowns.
Yeah, the leader of the clowns in the Akira manga is called Joker.
Oh, well, there you go.
Batman Beyond, Stranger Things, 11. The Duffers have said that is straight from Akira.
I don't know if it's on the list, but Brightburn, bro.
Yeah.
Kid with a cape.
Oh yeah,
I mean, come
Brightburn,
on.
bro.
Come on.
Core Designs Switchblade, Valve's Half-Life series, Remember Me. John Gaeta cited Akira as artistic inspiration for the bullet time effect, again in the Matrix movies, the Star Wars prequel films, and the Clone Wars franchise, all heavily inspired by Akira. Todd McFarlane cited Akira as a main influence in his animated Spawn television series.
Wow.
So if that's not enough of a reason that you listening or watching should go check out this movie if you haven't.
And probably countless others, to be honest.
Yeah. Because think about what expanded off of all of those.
Well, I mean, The Matrix alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if
Could
you're a big
go.
anime fan listening, you could probably list 100 other, just anime properties that have taken inspiration from this. And then I thought it was interesting. I had already said that Tetsuo means Iron Man in Japanese. Akira means bright, intelligent, and clear in Japanese.
Brightburn. Oh.
It's Brightburn. That's Brightburn, bro.
But yeah, I mean, I really dug this movie on a rewatch.
I think it's my second or third time watching it as well. It's a great film. It just, like I said, I feel like it has a little too much length or not enough length, one or the other.
Yeah, and try not to get too annoyed by the fact that all of the characters just pretty much spend the runtime shouting each other's names. It's just a lot of Akira, Tetsuo,
Kaneda.
Kaneda.
I was like, is his name Canada?
Oh, Canada.
He's very red.
Dang. Connections? Probably not. All right. So, recommend from us.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, sorry that you just heard all that discussion about it, but it's really good.
If you're in the States, it's
Worth
on.
a watch. And I'm not somebody who's
Hulu.
really big into anime. I've really only seen like Pokemon and Dragon Ball and that kind of shit. So, from an outsider, I will say that it was very enjoyable. Just from a cinematic perspective.
What better launch pad
Yeah.
than
Yeah, but
Akira?
is it going to be all downhill from
Launch
here?
pad like a McQuack.
If my recollection is correct, no. You're going to have a blast with some of these other movies we're going to be talking about, too.
Cool. So that's going to wrap it up for anime this week. We are going to have a final cut, and then when we end that, we'll let you know what we're watching next week. So stay tuned.
Stick around, you fuck. A very nice person.
You funny, nice person.
You fucking cool guy.
You country loving lady.
What do you know? I asked for final cut, and I got it!
For the return of Final Cut, we are talking about, highly anticipated for us, Evil Dead Rise. Like we mentioned either in our bonus or earlier, it has been 10 years in the making.
10 whole years.
A whole decade.
Which is crazy.
I've lived several lifetimes since the last Evil Dead came out.
I remember when the 2013 one came out, there was all these talks of them doing a sequel, then doing a sequel to Army of Darkness, then crossing the two franchises over, and all this shit, which apparently was a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then that got put on a huge hold because Ash vs. Evil Dead came out.
Yeah.
And it looks like that's probably not going to be happening anymore because now Bruce Campbell has officially retired Ash, but
He's
we'll
coming
see.
back.
We'll
He's
see.
gonna come back.
So yeah, I mean, I still wish that could have happened. I guess now there is light talks of them trying to blend all three,
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit.
which I'm like, cool, do whatever you got to do. Like, I would love to see Ash again, and I just can't imagine that character in the movie style that we got with this one, even though it's a little bit closer, but definitely not the style of Feedy's. Like, it's
Yeah.
a very, very different movie.
So if we, before we get into spoilers, we'll do our usual, do we recommend, do we not recommend?
Yes.
You know, this one I think will definitely need a big spoiler warning because I'm sure a lot of people haven't seen this. But if you're curious, you know, kind of where this lands in the tone of Evil Dead films, since they are kind of all over the place,
Smack dab in the middle.
it does very much feel like it is trying to walk the line of being very similar to Feedy's, but like you said, walks it a little bit closer in a couple scenes.
It's got like a toe back hanging out with the original trilogy.
Yeah, toward Evil Dead, but does not get explicitly goofy. Like it's just goofy if you recognize stuff, and there's a couple lines that may feel out of place if you're not an Evil Dead fan that are obviously just things that are homage-y.
There's a little fan service.
Yeah. But overall, it's played very straight. It's very brutal. And I had a great time with it. We had a great theater experience. We were talking earlier, I think maybe in our bonus, trying to remember, and then we talked in text about the last time we saw a movie together, and we're pretty sure the last time we all three were together at a movie was The Evil Dead with Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
So kind of crazy that we were able to pull off. We think. That's our best guesstimate. We also just have
been
all
almost a
have
year ago.
poo for brains when it comes to memory. So
I will say, just kind of piggyback, that the 2013 one is very serious and pretty bleak.
yeah,
And this one is, although still pretty serious, has a lot more levity to it.
Yeah,
and in a very Evil Dead way.
on the drive here, the word that popped into my head that I felt best explained the like main difference is that 2013 feels like a meaner film. Like it feels like it's angry at you. Like
That's what it sounded like the set was like too. From all understandings.
Yeah, it's a mean film, and this one doesn't seem like it's going as much out of its way to just make you hate yourself because everything is so dirty and bleak and horrible.
Yeah.
While still also obviously having the gore and the gags and all that stuff. But
So a little bit of background. This one is directed by Lee Cronin, who previously did The Hole in the Ground. And as far as the producers go, we got the original gang. We got Rob Tappert, we got Sam Raimi, and we got Bruce Campbell all supporting this film, which is fantastic. And I don't know how much they were involved, but I know that Campbell has been very vocal about this movie for a while.
from what I've heard, mostly through statements that they've made, but also through Feedy's commentary on 2013's Evil Dead, where Raimi was just a producer, not an executive producer like he is on this one. He was very involved to where Feedy showed him the movie after it was completed, and then Sam was the one who would go like, oh, okay, that arm chopping off scene, you need to push that even further, like make it even more fucked up. And he was in there like, oh, you can take this further and push that, and make it crazier, and it'll still feel Evil Dead. He was like, it'll feel more Evil Dead. So it seems like their role is more like just making sure that you stay within whatever boundaries the Evil Dead should stay within. Which seems to be no boundaries at all, but in the best possible way.
Yeah.
And that's also the thing that I said right after this, is that this movie does feel like more of the same, but not in a bad way if you're an Evil Dead fan. Like, to me, it's like, yeah, it's more of the same, but it's more Evil Dead. And it feels like Evil Dead. It doesn't go so far into weird territory where it's like, oh, like this just felt like a different script they slapped Evil Dead on.
I mean, the only big difference is the location.
Yeah.
I think the location adds enough of a difference to where you won't feel like this, like, oh, this is the same shit I've been watching.
Yeah.
But it also adds some like different challenges, which I think that are handled well, and I think that there's a lot of fun to be had if you're into this sort of movie.
Yeah, so the location is in a kind of condemned apartment building.
High rise.
In Los Angeles.
Ellie lives there, who's played by
Alyssa
Sutherland, and she has 3 kids. Morgan Davies plays Danny, Gabrielle Eccles plays Bridget, and Nell Fisher plays Cassie, and they are later joined by their aunt Beth, played by Lily Sullivan. And there's other kind of bit players, but those are the main core of who we're going to follow.
Yeah, much like the other Evil Dead films, this is a primarily one location, small cast of 5 or so people getting picked off. It pretty much just feels like, okay, let's take Evil Dead and just remix the elements slightly. But I think now would be a good time to say I recommend it. Go check it out. I had a great time. See it in theaters, specifically for the sound mixing and sound design. I thought it was fantastic.
There's some beautiful shots, though, that look like they belong on a big screen.
Yeah, and go see it for the title reveal. I mean, if you haven't seen it already, because, for whatever reason now, to get social media clout, everybody takes their phone out and snaps pictures during movies. So the title reveal is just all over Twitter and everything, of people going, oh, they should win. If they should make an Oscar for title reveals and give the first one to. And I totally agree that it's a fucking badass reveal that really gets you like, okay, I'm on board.
It's like the Insidious.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, you still remember that shit.
Yeah, it's impactful. It's
I can hear the fucking the sting.
Yeah.
But and you guys recommend checking this out as well?
Yes.
100% in theaters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree
so
more.
Getting into spoilers.
Bam.
Real quick, do we recommend it for people that aren't Evil Dead fans? Because we are obviously very big Evil Dead fans. Do you think that for a wide audience that it's accessible and enjoyable?
If you can handle gore, then absolutely yes.
Yeah. If you're not a fan of gore,
Verbinski.
yeah.
Ow.
Then don't check it out. But if you like that stuff, you don't need to have seen any of the other Evil Dead movies. It's fun if you have, because there's nice little references and connections, but it's not like this is something where you need to have seen all of the previous Evil Dead stuff. The cool thing about Evil Dead is that it's never been consistent from literally Evil Dead to Evil Dead 2. They change up what the continuity is. Yeah. And then Army of Darkness, there's multiple endings for that movie. And then if you're going by the continuity of what happens in Ash versus Evil Dead, and then, so it's kind of messy, but in a good way, to where it means you don't necessarily have to watch you can watch any of the individual Evil Dead things.
They all
I think
stand
besides
alone.
The show you should have at least seen
The
1 through 3. Yeah. But with everything else, you can just hop in and you'll have a total blast and not be terribly confused.
Will you say that where you watch something like Saw, where it's gore just to be gore, do you think that this is gore in a different way? So if you're like someone who's not big and not sure what to watch, and if you're going to be able to stomach this, Saw is gross to be gross, and that's kind of the whole point of that movie. To me, this isn't the point of this movie. It works, and it's in abundance, but there's more to it than just gore for gore's sake.
Well, I think an interesting comparison. That's an interesting comparison, and then also this against something like we were talking about in our bonus, like Infinity Pool. Mm-hmm. The way the violence is handled there, I'd say this This does a similar thing to Saw in that the gore to me feels very gag centric, where it's like we're gonna make, there's the cheese grater scene, there's the chewing on the wine glass, there's the tattoo needle.
Okay.
Like people are going to refer to those as those things. And the cheese grater was hyped up for months before the movie came out, and so I was actually kind of disappointed by how tame that was.
I was like, let me see it. Just looked like a scratch.
But on the other hand,
a handful of scratches.
until we get to the very end when we get like a Lovecraftian, Cronenbergian,
Jesus.
weird mutant monster, the gore feels very everyday things that could really happen to you. And to me, that's also very scary in its own way, similar to what we were talking about with Infinity Pool, where because the gore feels very visceral and realistic, it's almost more scary than having guts spilling out all over the floor. And I feel like where the 2013 Evil Dead maybe goes a little bit further in the direction of just like over the top, entire arms being chopped off, tongues being cut in half, this kind of plays it a little bit more realistic with the gore overall.
I think part of that is because I think if you're looking at 2013 as a whole, like it's a pretty consistent, like here's several fucked up gore scenes, and they're kind of played up in like this like more ridiculous fashion, where if you look at this one as a whole, it's because of where it ends that it keeps it more tame through the beginning parts of the film. I think that they could have made some of the stuff a lot crazier. Like they could have lopped some shit off with the drone scene in the cold open, or they could have done some crazier things in the apartment. But I think because the fact that it ends in this fucking disgusting monstrosity at the end of it, and you have to carry a lot of your weight there as far as like effects budget or the ability to convince like a ratings board to give you anything under an NC-17 or an X rating or whatever, you have to kind of toe the line. And I think that forced them to toe the line a lot earlier.
Well, there you go. So,
but I do think that some people are gonna, and I've seen some. Overall, the reaction seems to have been very positive for this, especially from Evil Dead fans. But I do think that there are a lot of people who were hyped that this is going to be like even more fucked up. Like I said, because of what Emma from Spooky Astronaut said. She said that this was gorier than Terrifier 2, which I totally disagree with. But the gore in Terrifier 2 is to be over the top guts and flesh being ripped off and stuff. And you mentioned Saw. In Saw, especially in the later ones, it feels like the gags are halting the plot completely so we can have 5 to 10 minutes of horrific stuff happening. That doesn't happen in this. Like all of the gore scenes are very quick and brutal, and they're part of the progressing plot.
They're there to service the film rather than to be the film.
right. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, and that's what I thought too. So I don't know if that helps anybody out there. Like, is it just gross to be gross? To some degree, sure, but it also is there because it serves the story.
Well, so now let's talk a little bit about what the basic story of this is. So you had mentioned basically what the setup is with the family, but Beth, the aunt, she is a guitar technician. She's constantly being
referred to as a
groupie, and I'm not really sure why that bit was a recurring thing throughout the movie. I was trying to kind of figure out thematically what that meant, like if it was supposed to be like,
she's her sister like poking fun at you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you groupie.
Yeah, it just felt weird because then later she has like, I'm not a fucking groupie, and I was like, I don't care. like why am I supposed to care about that? I mean, it comes into play that like because she's a guitar technician, that's how she's able to like Ash style engineer some shit toward the end. So that comes into play, but Alyssa Sutherland's character is a tattoo artist, which also comes into play in a pretty dope scene. But they're all kind of alternative, like fringy people living in LA, and then the kids are all kind of their own different.
One of them is a DJ. One of them is like a rights activist who's like getting prepared to go to like a feminist rally.
Yeah, the little girl makes weird, creepy heads on
Staphany.
sticks. Staphany. Yeah.
I feel like they all, the kids and the parents, they all had like really like luscious lips.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell is going on with all these lips?
All very gorgeous people.
Yeah, and I was like, what? I have little bird lips.
even when the mom is the mother of all
sad.
evil, Deadite level, I was like, I'd still hit it.
Yeah.
But how did you guys feel about the characters and the setup for the family? Like, did you care about these characters?
I thought they were all fun. Yeah, I thought that as the main Deadite, I think that the mother works fantastically well. She's a great believable character before the transition, and then after is just like so great. Like reminds me like of a lot of similarities to the original trilogy, and like how like fucked up and depraved their language can be, and just works really well in that space.
Yeah, she obviously to me got to do the actor's dream of getting to play like the more subdued normal person, motherly figure, and then getting to go completely feral and crazy and talk, say things like mommy's with the maggots now and you titty sucking parasites. So that's all fun. Yeah, I liked all the characters. I knew I was completely on board when I think is it Danny, the one kid is DJing and they're playing LCD Sound System and remixing one of my favorite LCD Sound System songs, and I was like, fuck yeah, because LCD Sound System has also shown up a few times in succession recently, and I'm just like, yes, any more representation for, I mean, that's an extremely popular musical group, so I'm not the first person to say that, but
what did we think of this version of the Book of the Dead?
I was going to ask that next. I think my favorite is still 2013's with it all stitched together, and I love the way the illustrations in 2013's look. But I did think the like teeth on the side of this one was pretty cool. I do like that they try to do something
blood to open.
Yeah, that felt very newest Hellraiser, where it was just like, oh, the blood needs to touch the puzzle box and then it activates or whatever. I liked that they were like, okay, well, we can't have people be stupid enough to read the book like we have in every other one, so we'll just have like a dude on a vinyl record, and that was their nice, convenient way of it. None of us would have had any sort of suspension of disbelief because we all listen to vinyl records and have record players, but for a general audience,
I have winning it.
For a kernel audience, they would probably be like, what the fuck? But they obviously set up that the kid has a bunch of turntables and everything, so that's cool. And then because they set up the tattoo artist thing, and I noticed that is it Ellie, the mom, had tattoos like on her arms and legs when she's like doing the bath thing, and it hadn't even registered with me that she was a tattoo artist until she takes the tattoo gun and stabs her own head with it.
I caught it because she was building one, and that's very common. Aside, I mean, at least in prior decades even, that tattoo artists used to all build their own guns and their own equipment. And they would buy things like the motors for them, and then they would build them to kind of be how they wanted them to be. Now you see a lot more like, I think one of my more recent tattoos, it was all like a handheld system.
Yeah.
And like they click a couple of buttons and then dip, and it's good to go.
Weird.
But yeah, I liked that the book had its own style for this one. They referenced the fact that there were 3 books. In Army of Darkness, we see the 3 books that Ash sees in the medieval Dead times. In lore, the idea, I guess, for that was supposed to be that 2 of them are like copies of the original, but it seems in this that there's just multiple versions that do different things, and I kind of like that even the books in the first 3 movies, while supposed to be the same book, they don't really look anything the same. Which is why I felt free to use, to make yours look however I wanted. Yeah. But I like that in the originals, you have that book that does its own, set of random, weird, crazy things. And then in 2013's, each of the different pages has like it's almost like a prophecy of what's going to happen to these different people. Like one's going to get burned, one's going to get, cut up or whatever. And then it eventually summons this abomination creature that attacks Mia in the end. And then in this one, you get a similar thing of like the pages flipping and showing like, okay, this horrible thing needs to happen. And then this horrible thing needs to happen to eventually summon this mother of evil, crazy thing. And I like that idea that like each of the books seems to have like a different set of rules and evil things that it does. And that could be because they've been copied by different people throughout history. And we get like that really creepy like religious convention where the priest is reading it, and you get to like the way they do the speakers, like boom, 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 like vibrating in the things when he's reading the words. And did you guys catch the Ash Williams cameo in this scene?
Is it the person who's walking in the alleyway?
Nope.
Was he on the record?
He's on the record.
Ash is,
Your
or
Honor.
Bruce Campbell is?
Both.
Okay.
So he is the person on the record who shouts. I didn't catch this. It was only after the fact that I learned about it. But he shouts, like, "Don't read from it. It's called the Book of the Dead for a reason."
Oh.
And it was people were like, "Oh, that was Bruce Campbell." Whoever, when they recognize his voice, well, Lee Cronin said that it's Ash. But that record, I guess, is supposed to be in the 1920s. So people are wondering how Ash ends up in the 1920s. Could be something like that's explored in the future. Could just be a little, cute little Easter egg. But I like the idea of Ash showing up in this one, even as just like the guy warning, like, "Don't read from you must not read from the book." He's the guy.
He said the thing.
But Cronin said that in this movie they used 6,500 liters or 1,720 gallons, for you American idiots, of fake blood in the movie.
Don't want to be one of those.
And I mean, yeah, there is a lot of blood. There's the very obvious Shining reference toward the end of the movie. As soon as there was an elevator, I was like, we're definitely getting a Shining reference. A little twist on it that the people were inside the elevator and get like spilled out with a big flood of blood. We get
Flood of blood.
We get a remix of the tree rape thing, but it doesn't go quite as far, and it's with elevator cables. How did you guys feel about that, like, remix of her being attacked in the elevator?
Well, so the movie starts off with a scene that is classic Evil Dead, where the camera is like flying around, and I was very disappointed by that because it looked very stiff, and I was like, this is not going to be a movie that I like, just based off the shitty way that you're already attacking Evil Dead things.
Well, I also had the same thought, but it was because of the fact that it's revealed to be a drone.
Yeah.
I was like, oh god, we're doing this joke right off the bat.
So then when it was revealed to be that, I was like, okay, that makes sense why it was like that. And later on, it's a lot more of Raimi's signature style. So that was something that I liked. And so then going into this, which I didn't think we were going to get, I thought it was cool. It does something a little bit different. We get to see it cut into her in ways. But I mean, I hate to say that I was disappointed it didn't go further, but I feel like if you're an Evil Dead movie, you kind of gotta take that plunge.
That's part of what...
But it's like, I don't feel comfortable saying that at all.
Well, and it's not like they necessarily have to have a rape scene in every Evil Dead movie. Because, I mean, I don't think they do in Army of Darkness, but...
No. I don't even know if they have it in 2.
Yeah, but there is that element of, like, sexual perversion that goes into the Deadites that didn't feel like it came across quite as strong, but there is still a bit of it in the movie. It's just, I don't know if it's because they didn't want to insult, because people have obviously very different opinions 10 years from in 2023 than they did in 2013 about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's not bad that they don't do it, because the scene is great all around.
I think there's also an additional layer that none of us are really attacking, and that's the fact that everybody in this circle of people, aside from the random bit characters, are blood relatives. So there is a good chance that taking it that route and crossing that barrier and making it more sexual in nature is a little dirtier and grimier than it is in any of the other efforts.
Yeah, that's true.
Which, again, could be an argument for why you should be
it's
doing
pretty
that.
Evil Dead. But I think it's good they didn't.
And I do think that this movie wasn't trying to be a Terrifier 2 in terms of being like, we're going to be the most controversial, gory, fucked up thing to come into the theaters. I do think that it is still trying to appeal and make money with a modern audience, or with
doesn't
generic audience.
Mia say some fucked up shit to her brother and...
Yeah, I said the line earlier. She's like, why don't you come down here so I can suck your cock, pretty boy?
Yeah. So, I mean, they pushed it.
Yeah, but I think that it's further when it's your children.
Yeah.
She cuts her tongue in half at that one point, and she's like, kiss me, you cunt. We get a couple lines like that, but yeah, I do think that part of it is probably sensibility. It's just a different time now, and I'm okay with them not going quite as far. It's just that there were several scenes where I felt like I expected there to be a little bit further.
Yeah. Well, I thought the cheese grater was going to be deep
nasty,
and if they were giving out little graters for showings, I was expecting it to be a kind of heavy-hitting scene, and it wasn't bad. It just wasn't what I was led to believe, I would say, I guess. Some Evil Dead stuff that they do. We get a twist on the floating eyeball. Mm-hmm. So I won't say how it happens, but there's an eye shot through the room, and it's very campy.
Yeah.
And so it works for us as Evil Dead fans. We are here for that to some degree, right? But it does feel a little out of place with the tone of the movie.
I think
It's
some
the
people
most-
are going to be put off by that scene specifically.
And it's fan service.
It's the most Sam Raimi shit I've ever seen in my entire life, aside from like vomiting into somebody's mouth or
yeah. What should we get?
Yeah.
Well, so there was that scene.
And then the get some
yeah,
or come
so
get some or whatever.
that's
But
the other
I was
thing.
like, yes, as an Evil Dead fan, love it. As an homage to Ash, great. As a part of this movie,
I listened to a review on the way here from a couple guys who had not seen any of the previous Evil Deads, and they
how weird.
And they said they were actually, and they still really enjoyed the movie, but they were saying that they were able to pick out the reference parts because they stood out to them. They said the eyeball stood out as like that's got to be a reference to one of the other movies. They said the come get some definitely didn't feel in character for her and felt like a reference. So they said like they could tell when it was trying to be a little bit fan servicey, which again, I mean, I wasn't complaining because I was like, cool, make it feel more uniquely Evil Dead than the 2013 did, and because that one I felt like, you're playing different tightrope walks with these movies because in 2013 I think they were thinking, okay, we need to just make a really straightforward, brutal horror movie to kind of try to reinvent this franchise.
We've also watched
get horror-
Platinum Dunes like come up to bat and fail over and over and over again with different attempts at remakes of other shit. Nightmare on Elm Street got critically panned. I mean,
yeah. So on this one, I think it was, they took the risk of changing the location. So then they had to. To me, it felt like they had to make sure to put in extra references to other Evil Dead stuff to make it feel like there was less disconnect because it wasn't taking place in a cabin in the woods, which I'm totally fine with. Change up the setting, do crazier, different stuff. I want to see them go even further with this idea of taking it to different places.
go to
and
the
doing different
Insidious
stuff.
franchise, take them to the further.
Hell, do it.
sleep.
But like I said, it didn't bother me, but I think it will put some people off if they don't get the references. But again, I mean, I think it's totally fine. I think overall it still works really well.
It does some pretty cool stuff on it of its own that you don't see in the other parts of the franchise, like the Cronenberg-esque The Thing type monster, which was new and it's pretty good. I was interested in that, and I would have liked to see more of it, to be honest. And I would have really liked to see it go into that fucking grinder.
Yeah. As soon as that they showed that grinder in the garage right before they find the book, I was like, well, we obviously know how the movie's gonna end right there.
And when we found out that dude had like a lawn service, I was like, "What? We're definitely getting a chainsaw, baby."
Well, he mentions like, "Oh, I got my tools in my truck or whatever,"
Yeah.
and he mentions like, "I got a hammer and I got a chainsaw and all that."
Like, yes.
Might be an unpopular opinion, but I'm sick of the chainsaws in Evil Dead. It was Ash's thing, and that was cool. Then obviously in 2013, I feel like they were like, okay, well, we need to make sure that we nail home that this is an Evil Dead movie. I don't think at this point you have to keep having the characters randomly end up with chainsaws at the end. Have them have their own unique, different weapon. Like, I get that it's a staple of the franchise, but you're not going to do a better chainsaw ending than 2013 did. That's the gif that's going around everywhere on Twitter as like... Yeah, and just the raining blood. Like, you're just not going to be able to really top that, so do something different.
I had to cut it up with my chainsaw arm.
Yeah. I mentioned this to you guys, and it kind of blew my mind. The same cinematographer who did this film is the cinematographer from Ash vs. Evil Dead, which actually got me to go start watching that, and it is fucking hilarious, and at times gorier than this movie was. Yeah. I'm actually like pretty shocked watching it. I just finished the first season. Because I wanted to get more into the lore, especially if we can get into this now. Campbell said recently in an interview that the plan now is for Sam and his brother Ivan to create an Evil Dead Bible that is basically a way that they can hand this franchise off to different creators and say, as long as you keep it in line with this creative Bible, go crazy. And Campbell was saying that's their way of like they want to start getting these out every 2 to 3 years as opposed to every 10 years. And he was saying like we can literally go anywhere with it because the books are ancient. We can go way into the past. We can go into the future. We can go to different locations around the world. We can pretty much do whatever we want as long as it centers around the evil book. And he was saying that they're going to try to bring all of this franchise like somehow in line. Which, I mean, there's always going to be things that don't make sense between these movies and how they connect. But I would be interested to see how that happens. There have been pictures floating around that Jane Levy, who played Mia in 2013, together with all the women from this one.
Oh, really?
Like the women of Evil Dead.
Yeah.
And they like shot some pictures together, and they've all been very supportive of like Levy like tweeting about like, yeah, congratulations, like welcome to the family, and it's
That's
been
so
really
cool.
cool to see
Yeah.
Alyssa Sutherland. Like people are saying she is going to be a new like horror icon, her Deadite and everything, and
I thought Beth did a great job too.
Yeah.
yeah, no, I thought everybody was great. I thought the little girl, especially for it being her first film, because at the end, it's like Anne
She's
introducing.
adorable.
She's adorable, and also just, I mean, she's really good, and that must be so weird. And like, I know that those sets must be really fun to work on, and I'm sure they do a great job of making the kids not scared when they're not supposed to be scared. But because of how horrific the imagery and stuff in this is, it just seems like such a weird environment for a little kid to be working in, which makes me think that she must be obviously very professional for her age.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to see that this movie didn't do, and then maybe this would have been too much fan service, but I don't remember if they do it in 2013, but in the other ones, we typically get that scene where the main Deadite then transforms back for like a scene and like tricks them. And I think this would have been really impactful with the daughter when she's in the peephole, to have the mom turn around and be like normal for a while. And I know they did it like vocally, but I was like that, and because she had her back facing her, and I'm like, this is the perfect time for you to do a very Evil Dead move.
That's where, and I don't know if this is what you were about to say, but that's where I feel like this movie does kind of stumble a little bit in terms of doing Evil Dead right, because it does change up a little bit of like the logic of how the Deadites work. In this, it seems a lot more like a gradual, almost like zombie infection type of, like they gradually become sicker and grosser.
And depending on who is becoming a Deadite, because the kids come almost immediately. People in the hallway take half an hour to an hour.
Yeah, and they don't do near as much of the like switching and back and forth between looking normal and looking evil. A couple times she like switches her voice, like you said, and starts talking like the regular mom, but still looks all fucked up and stuff. And I was like, yeah, but in Evil Dead, like part of the fun is that they can like
fuck with you.
It instantly switch back to looking like normal and fuck with you, and that's part of like their psychological mind game. And so
yeah,
and then also like the way the Deadite possession is transferred felt kind of inconsistent and weird in this. Like it felt to me like there were a lot
I think
of
it's
time-
always been kind of that way though too.
Yeah, it just feels to me like in the old ones it was a lot more consistent of just like, if you are attacked and injured in some way by the Deadite, you are going to become a Deadite. In this, like a lot of the times the character would get attacked and they'd survive just fine for a little while, and something else would happen to them, and then they would turn into a Deadite. And like I was confused about the tattoo gun thing. You guys explained that like it was because she stuck it into her head to get her like blood on it.
You gotta
and
get
then
the blood, I think. Yeah,
and
or
then
the
she
vomit.
like scratched her face with it and then like licked it or whatever. And like, you know, that obviously makes sense why that happened. But it just felt a little bit like they didn't have quite as strong a grasp on how the logic of the Deadites was supposed to work in this one.
What did you want to say?
I mean, I felt like I wasn't as disappointed in that specific scene that she didn't like have like a physical transformation. I think that part of that is knowing your audience. Maybe that takes a lot of effort, and for her, she knew that she could get what she wanted by just changing the voice, because in the end she still tricks her.
Yeah. And I think another thing I wanted a little bit more of is exploring this like motherhood, pregnancy, like through line.
It doesn't really go anywhere.
Yeah. So like with Mia, the drug stuff is, and you know, the
integral to
recovery
that.
is,
Yeah.
exactly. And so they add this, and it just kind of feels tacked on. Like we don't need it to push
because
the story
like,
forward.
To me, it's just supposed to reinforce the whole motherhood theme that's going throughout the entire movie, and like maybe it's symbolic at the end that Beth overcoming the Deadites is showing that she's finally become responsible enough to be a mother.
Well, now she's gonna be a mother too.
Well, yeah, and because she protected the daughter.
But I think we either needed more of it or none of it, because I don't feel like they did a service to that idea.
Well, and it's also actually, I think, doing a little bit of a disservice in some circles, because there's specifically that line where Deadite Ellie is attacking Beth, and she like, you know, she says like, "Oh, two souls,"
Yeah.
and mentions that she knows there's a baby inside of her, and a lot of people are taking that as a pro-life message. Of like, oh, the director wouldn't have mentioned that the baby had a soul unless he agrees with the idea that, unborn babies have souls.
Maybe it's just a cool line, dude.
To me, it was like, that's just the line that I would have instantly thought of when I thought, oh, well, she has a baby inside her. So the Deadite would mention, like, I'm going to feast on both of you. But a lot of people are taking it as like it's a pro-life versus pro-choice message. And like, I don't think there was that much thought put into it. My thought was, ooh, maybe they're setting up the idea that the baby is going to like still be possessed, post the movie, and that she's going to have like some sort of freaky Deadite baby. That would be very fucked up and interesting.
Very Dawn of the Dead.
Just totally. Fucking chainsaw out of her cooter. Yeah, so there were some things where I didn't feel like they fully came together, but nothing that really like tore me out of the movie or made me think like, oh, this sucks. I still had a really good time with it. I think overall 2013 is a bit more effective in my opinion, and does go a bit crazier in a way where I feel like it's more effective. But I also have that entire movie memorized front to back because I've seen the 2013 version 10 million times. It's like my favorite when I want to show a new person I'm dating or a new person I've met who's over, like, hey, you want to see a fucked up horror movie? Put on Evil Dead 2013. Or it's like, if I just feel like watching just a fucked up fun horror movie, put on 2013. I think so. I just would need to rewatch this one to really get like my opinion solid on it.
I think the 2013 one is probably a better movie, but I think this one is probably a more in line with Evil Dead.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Like definitely the 2013 one is great for what it is, and it does have Evil Dead elements in a lot of ways. But this one feels like it could have been part of the progression of that franchise.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, I like them both quite a bit. I think that I like that this isn't afraid to kind of break out some of those campier elements, just to kind of tie itself in.
Totally.
But I could see this being that bridge that gets you to combining everything, so that way it all gets under the same umbrella. We're not looking at an Evil Dead remake anymore. We're looking at this Evil Dead being part of the franchise.
And I will say that I think the characters are handled better in this movie than they are in 2013. There's pretty
better in this.
Yeah, and in 2013, really the only, I mean, I like the characters in that, but Mia obviously gets the majority of her characterization is in the beginning and at the very end, because most of the time she's possessed, and then her brother is kind of a brick wall, and then the friend who reads the book is, to me, my favorite and the most interesting character. But a lot of parallels between the movies. Like, this does feel like it's kind of trying to hit a lot of the same beats because you have the familial connection. It's brother sister in 2013, and obviously mother and sisters in this, and
that goes back to the original too.
Yeah, and
I guess the original.
Then also you have like the brother in 2013. His whole bit is that he like abandoned Mia with their abusive mother. So there's that whole like, oh, you left and haven't really been around while I've been doing my thing, and then it's about that character coming back and having to face this evil in order to like gain a level of responsibility and adulthood. So there's obviously like parallels, but I think that you're right that it does all kind of go back to the original Evil Dead. Some little bits of trivia before we wrap up our discussion here. Most of the names of characters in this movie are references to actors from previous Evil Dead movies. The pizza place in the movie is called Henrietta's, which is the name of the bloated it's the wife of the guy who reads the book in the first one on tape and is like the demon. And Cronin did point out that there is no Oldsmobile Delta in the movie. It's the first Evil Dead that doesn't have Sam Raimi's car that he lost his virginity in.
It does have a Buick, though.
So it has a Buick, and also apparently the chainsaw, it's the first time the chainsaw is not red. It's yellow. It's the exact same paint color as the Oldsmobile. So that was his way of like combining the references and sneaking them in. And he was like, yeah, the chainsaw is the color of the car.
What's the name of the car? What do they call it?
The Shaggin' Wagon.
No, I don't think
they call it. Is it the Beast? I don't know. They have like a name for it.
The old rust bucket. Lee Cronin also confirmed online that the cat that is seen and heard in the vents of the apartment complex does in fact survive the events of the film.
Yeah.
So I breathed a huge sigh of relief.
Speaking of
that.
animals in movies, have you seen that like new trailer for Sisu? Where it's like the cutest dog ever, and then it's a bunch of people tweeting like the dog better not die, the dog better not die, and then the filmmakers just put on the screen, "Don't worry, the dog doesn't die."
I mean,
And I was like, "Yeah, good call."
That's why that
Yeah.
website Does the Dog Die exists.
Yeah.
Oh, and also I wanted to point out I love that in both. Somebody posted about this, and I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, totally." In this and in Yellow Jackets, the newest season, very good trans representation. The actor who plays Danny is trans, but that is never brought attention to in the movie and isn't part of that character's identity or like a big deal about them. But they are just a trans actor playing a role, and that's awesome. And in Yellow Jackets, similarly, I don't know if you've gotten to this point yet, but the Purple Cult, the Purple group, the woman that like helps kidnap and beat up what's her face?
the one she stabs
Yeah, the one that's all pissed off at her now because they
Yeah.
like had their also
with the
trans.
fish.
Yeah. Yeah, with the fish. Anyway, so I just think the representation makes me happy, and also that in both cases it's not like the defining trait of that character and isn't really brought attention to because
also for having that kind of representation, then I think that the point about the prior thing about being pro-life is probably moot.
Yeah, but who knows? People, they can take whatever they want from a movie, and that's the beauty of cinema, right? Cronin did say in a recent interview that he has several ideas for possible sequels to this. He doesn't know if he's going to be involved, but he said if
They did
he
set it up
is-
for a sequel.
Yeah, and he said that was obviously done intentionally. I like the way that this wraps around because it does a similar thing to 2013 where you have the kind of the cold open of just an unrelated in that until you find out that it is related, but just like of a different set of people being tormented by the book and the Deadites. In the first one, you have the daughter who's like tied to the post and she gets set on fire. Yeah, which is brutal. In this one, you have the people at the lake with the drone and the fucking scout being ripped off, and
So good.
very hardcore, and the gorgeous title reveal.
Yes. That is actually the end of the movie.
Yeah, you get a little card that pops up that says the previous day or one day before or something like that.
Yeah.
And so then the whole events of the movie take place the day before this happens. We find out that apparently this woman has just like she must have had a rough night of drinking or something because she's apparently just been passed out
In
the
the
entire
hotel,
time. An
yeah.
earthquake, a deadite attack has
building.
happened, and she just gets up and is like, "Okay, I'm going on my vacation." But now the book is traveling. The Deadites traveling. The virus is spreading. Seems like leaving the door open for the Deadites to spread all around the world.
Expansion.
So some of the different ideas that Cronin said. He said, "I didn't want to bait it for sequels necessarily, even though the ending could be interpreted that way. But the ending for me was closing the loop back to the beginning of the movie, the way the story is told. I've got 4 places I'd like to look in terms of where to go." He said one of his ideas is the story behind the Book of the Dead, where that comes from. He said we have a history in this film that's presented through the vinyl records, so there's a story that needs to be told there.
Oh, we talked about that as soon as we
Yeah.
got out. Where I was like, that would be an easy place to go. You've already referenced it, and it would be cool to go to a different time period.
Yeah, so he was saying like that's in the 20s. We could go
Nice.
explore that. He also said continuing with surviving characters from this movie, we could just see where their characters go and if they fight more evil Ash style after this.
Yeah.
He said a third idea would focus on what happens to this building that has had Deadites in it. Like maybe what if it spreads to all these people and they go off to different places. So
We turn it into a Netflix mall, and then we get that movie.
well, it was supposed to get demolished, they said, like in a week after the movie.
Yeah.
And so it'd be, maybe they would explore like the crew coming to demolish it and running into all the carnage and Deadites.
Yeah, I want to see people get hit by wrecking balls.
And then he said the last idea for a sequel would be to take things back into the woods, where Evil Dead films traditionally happen. He said because of the opening and the closing, there's that continuation of how this evil has a gate. So like that's why he put that woods thing in, is to show like there's always this connection to the woods. He said that brings us back into a forest context, which excites me because I love that I broke the mold, but wouldn't it be fun now if I went back to a cabin in the woods? It could be a cool journey. So yeah, I mean, he has some ideas. We'll see if he does another Evil Dead. I was talking to I clapped really loud. I'm sorry. I was talking to Steven recently because he had just seen it and he wanted to talk about his thoughts. And
How was he on it?
He had a blast with it. He had very similar thoughts to pretty much everything that we've said here, which doesn't surprise me. But we were trying to think like who would be a good director who could really get a good handle on the Evil Dead 2 style of like horror comedy if they decided to go back in that route. And I said the team that did Psycho Gorman and The Void, Steve Kostansky, I think, because they know how to do the really awesome practical gore and effects, and they also know how to do the comedy. And to me, Psycho Gorman kind of feels like it's in a similar vein to your Evil Dead styles of horror comedy, and then The Void is just really fucked up, like other dimension demon stuff. So I was like, I would be interested to see them do it if they were given the right budget for it, because everything they've done so far has been pretty small budget,
in-house.
I wouldn't want
type shit.
to go that route. Not that those guys couldn't do it, but I don't want to go the comedy route.
Well, also, if
like
you want that,
like,
there's 3 seasons of Ash vs. Evil Dead that everybody sleeps on, and I posted on Instagram about it recently. Like, if you want that, those 3 seasons are pretty much Evil Dead 2 done for 3 seasons. Yeah. Like, if you love Evil Dead 2 like I do...
It's only 3 seasons.
Yeah, and they're short, too. They're 10 half-hour episodes per season. You could get through it in a weekend if you really tried, but I'm trying to pace it out a little bit.
Yeah, and savor it.
But the
one a week, bud.
The comedy is fucking hilarious. Raimi comes in and directs a bunch of episodes.
I mean, doesn't it start off with him with a wooden hand, like taking a girl from behind?
Yeah, he's just some of his. I mean, the one I sent you about this, like, yeah, we hit a deer and then the sucker just exploded, and then I had to chop him up with my chainsaw arm. At one point, they're like trying to figure out between. So Ash's severed hand comes back.
Oh.
And grows a whole evil, replica Ash, and then his like compadres have to figure out which one is which, and basically it ends up coming down to one of them makes a racist comment about Asians,
so they
and they blow him away. They blow him away, and they go, "No, it's because we know Ash, you are racist against Mexicans, not Asians." So it's like the specific brand of racist that Ash was that got them. But anyway, I feel like we've gone on long enough about the Evil Dead. But yeah, we had a blast. Great experience. Go see it in theaters. It's going to be on streaming in, I think they just announced, like 2 weeks. So
oh my God, really?
That seems like so short.
I mean, that's all these movies unless they're like a
But
Top
it's doing
Gun
well, right?
Yeah, it's making a really good amount of money for this budget of movie. I think it's already made its budget back and will continue to make a bunch of money. And yeah, I'll be very interested to see if we're talking about another Evil Dead movie in a couple years, or if we have to wait a whole nother decade. But I'm also just really pumped to go rewatch this one. And
yeah, I'm. It's not a bad entry into the franchise by any means. I'm glad it's a part of it, and I think that it fits right in with everything else.
We talk a lot about Scream being like the most consistent horror franchise. A lot of people are coming out now saying that like Evil Dead actually, in terms of quality, has overall not had a single dud, which I don't think you can say about Scream. Like, I enjoy all the Scream movies, but I would say like 3's a dud in the overall.
Depends on what you're going in for.
I'm not saying it's a terrible movie. I'm just saying that like I don't think a single entry in Evil Dead, including Ash vs. Evil Dead, is anything less than really good to great.
I mean, 3. I think both 3s are weird.
Yeah, but Army of Darkness is really fucking fun, and it's funny, and it's just a different thing. But anyway,
I mean, you could have not said Army of Darkness, and you would have been correct either way. Yeah. I think the same thing for Scream 3. I think it's funny and really fun if you allow it to be.
Well, you want to fight about it?
So what you want to fight about? Hey, next week we are going to continue anime, and we're talking about Ghost in the Shell, the animated movie, not the Scarlett Johansson.
I mean, I'd say both of them are animated in one way or another, but the one that is actual good animation.
Cell animation.
And this is so we're watching Ghost in the Shell with shoes on, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was watching the right film.
A24 movie.
Yeah, the A24 Ghost in the Shell with shoes on.
All right, on. So we hope that you check that out. And if you haven't, check out our bonus stuff where we just talked about Infinity Pool. And next week we are talking about Jennifer's Body. So that's on Patreon for only $5 a month. And it could be all yours and so much more.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for checking out this episode. I've been Tone.
I've been John.
The internet darlings with the maggots now. Anthony.
See you next time.
Keep it creepy.